Have you heard this yet? The 4-year cycle everyone trusted. It's over. It no longer drives this market, because right now 90% of the flow doesn't come from you, from me, or from retail. It comes from institutions, moving silently behind the curtain. And in that silence, they've been rehearsing for years. Hidden rails already running. Corridors already tested. But the switch hasn't been flipped. They're waiting for one thing: the Clarity Act. Once that law is signed, liquidity won't be measured in billions anymore. It will be quadrillions, the kind of volume Fedwire and Swift have carried for decades. And when that floodgate opens, it won't spread evenly. It will bend straight into the rare wallets inside the rich list. That's the moment everything changes overnight. So don't look away. Stay until the end of this video. You'll see why placement matters more than price, and why the rich list has already recorded who stands inside the corridor before the flood arrives. Because the Clarity Act won't whisper. It will turn silence into a flood. And when quadrillion flow begins, you only have two choices: stand inside the corridor, or be swept away. Part 1. 4-year cycle. Myth ends. For years, the crowd worshipped the 4-year cycle. Every halving, every chart, every headline, repeating like clockwork. Retail believed it was law, the heartbeat of crypto. But laws written by charts die the moment institutions arrive. The cycle was never sacred. It was only dominant when the market was small enough for retail emotion to matter. Today, that weight has shifted. Institutions don't trade memes. They don't chase halving dates. They run systems. They move corridors. They define liquidity. 90% of flows no longer answer to a 4-year rhythm. They answer to contracts, to compliance, to settlement pipelines rehearsed behind closed doors. The old pattern didn't break. It simply became irrelevant. The crowd still waits for the next halving to save them. But institutions don't wait. They build rails. They test flows. They prepare to flip a legal switch that will make the old calendar meaningless. The You Are Rich list shows who understood this shift, who stopped staring at old charts and started watching where liquidity rehearses. The XRP Rich list confirms it. Wallets positioned not by myth, but by math. The 4-year cycle didn't just end, it was replaced. And the new heartbeat isn't on a calendar, it's on a corridor. Part 2. Institutions drive 90% flow. Retail still believes it moves the market. A tweet here, a headline there, a candle spike. See? We caused this. But look deeper at the order books, at the volume no one headlines. 90% of the flow is institutional. That changes everything. Institutions don't chase price, they control liquidity. They don't ask if a coin pumps, they ask if settlement holds. Their moves aren't measured in likes or memes, but in corridors rehearsed for years, flows that dwarf retail by orders of magnitude. When 90% of the current is silent, what chance does retail have to steer? None. The crowd debates halving dates. Institutions run payment rails. The crowd obsesses over charts. Institutions sign corridors with banks, treasuries, and governments. This is why cycles end. Because math beats myth. And the math is brutal. Retail is background noise. Institutions are the signal. The You Are Rich list shows who understood that shift. The ones who stayed steady while headlines screamed. The XRP Rich list records on-chain the rare wallets placed exactly where institutional corridors already push value. The market doesn't follow retail anymore. It follows 90%, and 90% doesn't blink. Part 3. Quadrillion Scale Fedwire Context. Crypto headlines celebrate billions. A billion in volume here, a billion in TVL there. But billions are crumbs when you compare them to the system institutions actually move. Take Fedwire. It's not a blockchain. It's not flashy. But it settles quadrillions every year. Flows so massive they make the entire crypto market look like pocket change. This is the scale institutions live in. Quadrillions, not billions. And when they prepare rails, they don't ask if a ledger can handle a few million transactions. They ask if it can carry the weight of global commerce without breaking. That's why retail cycles never mattered to them. The old heartbeat of 4 years can't contain quadrillion-scale demand. Only rails designed for interoperability, for instant settlement, for corridors that connect banks to banks, can handle that kind of flow. The "You Are Rich" list reminds you, most measure wealth in billions, but the rare already understand quadrillions. The XRP Rich list confirms who stands ready in the corridor where quadrillion-scale liquidity must pass. Billions excite the crowd, but quadrillions decide the future. And when that future flips on, you'll either be inside the corridor or outside staring at numbers too big to chase. Part 4. Most altcoins disappear. The crowd clings to thousands of tickers, meme coins, copycats, coins with no corridors, no rails, no real use. For now, they look alive, blinking charts, noisy headlines, endless promises. But institutions don't need thousands. They need a handful that work. The rest are clutter, liquidity traps waiting to vanish the moment utility takes center stage. History proves this. Out of the dot-com frenzy, 99% of sites died. Out of the early auto industry, thousands of brands collapsed into a few survivors. Scale always crushes noise, and quadrillion-scale corridors don't have room for distractions. Most altcoins will disappear, not because of hate, but because math doesn't keep the unnecessary alive. When corridors open, demand flows only through rails that settle, that scale, that regulators approve. Everything else gets left behind. The "You Are Rich" list shows who stopped chasing noise coins and focused on scarcity. The XRP Rich list confirms, wallet by wallet, which positions already align with rails institutions rehearse. The crowd dreams every altcoin will moon, but reality is sharper. Most vanish, a few survive, and flow bends only through the rare. Part 5. ISO tokens replace Swift gaps. Swift was built for a world before instant money. It carries trillions every day, but it leaks in silence. Delays, fees, trapped liquidity, compliance frictions. For decades, those gaps were ignored because there was no alternative. Now there is. A handful of ISO standard tokens, engineered not for speculation, but to fix exactly what Swift cannot. Each one mapped to a weakness: speed, cost, interoperability, settlement finality. Together, they form a patchwork bridge between the old financial arteries and the new digital rails. Institutions don't choose based on hype. They choose based on function. And function is what ISO rails deliver. Few are needed. Most are redundant. That's why thousands of altcoins fade while a handful survive, the ones written directly into the new standard. The "You Are Rich" list shows who understood this shift, focusing on rails, not noise. The XRP Rich list confirms which rare wallets align with tokens designed to replace Swift's cracks. Swift gaps won't last forever. They're already being closed in silence. And when the switch flips, quadrillions won't dribble through broken pipes. They'll surge through new rails. Part 6. XRPL Interledger Scale Utility. Billions excite retail, but quadrillions demand infrastructure. That's where XRPL and Interledger step in. XRPL was designed for efficiency. Transactions finalize in seconds, cost less than a cent, and don't choke under volume. But scale isn't just about speed, it's about connection. That's where Interledger extends the reach. It links payment systems the way the internet linked computers, seamlessly, invisibly, everywhere. With XRPL handling settlement and Interledger bridging networks, rails aren't bound to one chain or one bank. They become universal. Cross-border, cross-network, cross-asset. Value flows like data, borderless and instant. Institutions have tested this quietly. Remittances, treasury transfers, payment corridors, all rehearsed with the same question. Can it scale beyond crypto hype to quadrillion-grade settlement? The answer isn't theory. It's practice. And it works. The U are rich list signals who saw utility before noise. The XRP rich list records which rare wallets already sit on the rails that proved themselves in silence. Utility doesn't shout, it just works. And when clarity flips the switch, utility doesn't scale up, it scales all at once. Part 7. Permission domains open DEX safely. Institutions don't walk through open doors. They demand gates, proof that whoever enters isn't a fraud, a front, or worse. That's what permission domains are. Not barriers, but filters. On the surface, retail imagines DEX as chaotic freedom. Anyone, anytime, no questions asked. That's fine for pennies. But for corridors meant to carry billions, even quadrillions, chaos isn't an option. Rails need filters, not to block flow, but to keep it clean. Permission domains create that filter. You prove you're compliant, you prove you're not laundering, you prove you're not a terrorist, and then the door opens. Institutions rehearse in these gated corridors today, simulating the flows they'll release the moment clarity arrives. Retail fears permission means exclusion, but it means the opposite. It's preparation. It's how the DEX becomes safe enough for scale. And when the gates swing open, the flood doesn't trickle in from retail, it surges in from institutions. The U are rich list marks who understood gates aren't locks, they're on-ramps. The XRP rich list confirms wallets aligned with corridors that institutions already test behind those gates. Permission isn't control, it's assurance. And once assurance is in place, DEX stops being an experiment. It becomes the backbone of quadrillion-scale flow. Part 8. Clarity Act flips legal switch. Rehearsals can run for years. Rails can be tested in silence. Corridors can move mock liquidity. Contracts can sit ready. But institutions never go live until law gives them cover. That's what the Clarity Act is, the final switch. Not speculation, not opinion, but statute. One law, one stroke of a pen, and what was theory becomes obligation. Institutions don't tiptoe in after clarity. They rush, because their rails are already proven. Retail imagines adoption is gradual. A little more volume here, a headline there. But adoption at quadrillion scale doesn't trickle, it detonates. The moment law aligns with utility, the dam breaks. To the crowd, it looks sudden. To institutions, it looks scheduled. They've been waiting for this one legal green light, and when it shines, hesitation ends. The UR Rich List reminds you, placement comes before clarity, not after. The XRP Rich List shows exactly which rare wallets will sit in the path when the switch flips. Law doesn't suggest. Law commands. And when clarity commands, the silent rehearsal becomes the loudest flood the market has ever seen. Part 9. Sidechains liquidity merge mainnet. Rehearsals don't stay in rehearsal halls forever. Sidechains, permission domains, test corridors, they all serve one purpose: to prove the system before it goes live. Today, those flows move in silence. Billions rehearsed, contracts tested, compliance frameworks hardened. But the liquidity doesn't end there. Once clarity strikes, the side corridors don't remain separate. They merge. Overnight, liquidity rehearsed in shadows connects with the public XRPL. Value that never touched the open chain before suddenly floods through it, transforming quiet practice into unstoppable flow. Retail thinks side chains mean separation. Institutions know they mean preparation. Every closed rehearsal is a pipeline waiting to be opened. And when it opens, the merge isn't gradual, it's instant. The UR Rich List shows who understood that side corridors weren't distractions, but previews. The XRP rich list confirms which rare wallets already align with the rails liquidity must bend through once the merge happens. The day sidechains merge into mainnet, the silent practice becomes visible flood, and those inside don't move, they receive. Part 10. Placement proves corridor-rich list. Price distracts the crowd. They wait for the next pump, the next candle, the next headline. But quadrillion scale flows don't answer to headlines. They answer to placement. When corridors open, it doesn't matter if you argued at 50 cents or dreamed of $10. What matters is whether you were positioned inside the funnel before the switch flipped. Placement decides everything. The You Are Rich list isn't about wealth, it's about proof. Proof of conviction. Proof of who stood still through silence. The XRP rich list is even sharper. An on-chain record of exactly which wallets sit in the corridors where liquidity must pass. Institutions don't ask what the price will be tomorrow. They ask, who holds the choke points when flow bends? And the chain already answers. Placement is math. It cannot be faked. It cannot be spun. It is proven by the lists, carved into the ledger. And when quadrillion-scale liquidity arrives, the lists won't just record placement, they'll decide destiny. You made it here all the way to the end. That already makes you rare. Billions will never hear this message. They'll chase headlines tomorrow. But you? You stayed, you listened, you saw the corridor before the flood. That's your advantage. And now it's time to market. Drop a comment right now. I hold my corridor. Not for hype, but to show conviction. The same conviction the rich lists record forever. Share this video with one friend who still thinks adoption crawls slowly. Show them what happens when quadrillion-scale demand flips the switch. And subscribe to XRP Today USA, bell on, so the next signal finds you before the echo. Placement proves everything. Placement writes the future. And by watching until the end, you've already shown you're not noise, you're signal. So hold your keys, hold your conviction, hold your corridor. Because when clarity strikes, you won't be chasing the flood. You'll already be inside it.